The diner's light made everything look kinder than it was. Booth vinyl glowed like old cherries. Steam curled from the plate that Marcus Hale had dreamed about since Monday. Chicken, biscuits, a spoon of greens glossed with butter. Enough warmth to quiet a week of noise. Across the aisle sat an older couple who carried themselves like Sunday. The man's jacket was clean but tired. The woman's cardigan had a careful darn at the elbow. They didn't study the menu. They studied each other's empty place settings. Fingers linked as if that counted as food. Marcus's stomach argued. The argument was loud. He cut the chicken to slow everything down, then stopped, the knife hovering. He knew that posture, will make do, because it lived at his kitchen table too. He looked at his plate. He looked at them. The math was brutal and simple. Marcus stood, slid out of the booth, and set his plate on their table with both hands so nothing could be pushed back. "Please," he said. That was all. The man blinked hard. The woman's smile folded into something wet and grateful. "Thank you," she whispered as if it might break. Marcus nodded once, turned before anyone could ruin the moment with questions, and walked into the night. Cold lifted the hair on his neck. He tucked his chin into his frayed collar and counted blocks home like he was counting beats. At the corner, he paused by the dark window of Hale Hardware, the shuttered shop where his father had spent more hours than any clock could hold. He touched the glass with 2 fingers the way he always did. "Miss you, Dad." Inside their apartment, the heater ticked like spoons in a drawer. Shawna Hale was still in her work polo, shoes off, eyes soft with worry she tried to hide. "You ate?" she asked, the question shaped by hope and habit. "Yeah," Marcus said, and brewed her tea so she wouldn't study the hollowness in his answer. He set the mug on a coaster ringed with old circles and sat on the arm of the couch until she smiled in the way that meant thank you for trying. When she slept, he spread his coins on the counter and did quiet math. Rent, bus pass, notebooks. He turned the last quarter over with his thumb like the face might blink and turn into $1. It didn't. He rinsed the tea mug, listened to the heater settle, and whispered a sentence he could say in his sleep. "Real strength isn't what you keep. It's what you give." His father had said it once when he split his sandwich with a stranger on a job site. Back then, Marcus thought strength meant lifting things. Tonight, it sounded like letting go. He slept fast and shallow, the kind of sleep that ends the second someone knocks. Morning cracked the sky open pale. A confident knock, not a neighbor's tap, rattled the door. Shawna startled awake. Marcus wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand and turned the deadbolt. On the stoop stood the elderly couple from the diner, hands linked again, and a tall man in a dark coat whose face lived on the business page. "Marcus Hale?" the man asked, voice steady. "My name is Elias Reed. I believe you gave away your dinner." The hallway filled with winter air and a feeling Marcus didn't have a name for yet. Now, rewind the clock a few hours further because the knock had its own story. For a heartbeat, the hallway was all breath and winter. Elias Reed stood with the assurance of someone used to doors opening, yet his eyes held a gentleness that didn't need to be announced. Beside him, the elderly couple from the diner, Walter and Helen Price, linked hands the way some people hold on to weather. Shawna touched Marcus's shoulder, smoothing his jacket as if the fabric could catch up to what was happening. "Come in," she said, and the words sounded like a small bravery. They sat at the narrow kitchen table that had carried too many meals of almost. Reed didn't touch the coffee Shawna offered. He set a heavy envelope beside his folded hands instead. "Marcus," he began, "the Prices told me what you did. You didn't ask their names or wait for applause. You simply acted." He glanced at Walter and Helen, whose faces were bright with the kind of gratitude that makes people look younger. Kindness like that is a map. It points the rest of us where to go. Marcus stared at the envelope. The room seemed to tilt toward it. "My name might be familiar," Reed went on, almost apologetic. "I run a logistics company upstate. But today I'm here as a neighbor who remembers hunger." He slid the envelope forward. Inside is a full scholarship to the Reed Scholars Program. Tutoring, summer prep, college tuition, books. There's also a modest monthly support for your household, paid directly to your mother, to keep the lights on while you study. Shawna covered her mouth. "Sir, no sir," Reed said softly. "Elias is fine. And this isn't charity." It's recognition. Marcus's fingers brushed the envelope, then retreated, as if heat lived in paper. I just gave a plate, he managed. You gave dignity, Reed answered. That's rarer than money. Helen leaned toward Shawna, palm warm on her arm. He did it so quietly, she said, voice measured by years. Set it down like it belonged to us. Walter's jaw worked once. Haven't been on the receiving end of something like that since. He stopped, shook his head, smiled at the table. Reed opened the envelope and arranged forms like a careful dealer. We'll go through every line, no tricks. The only condition is that you stay in school and let us help you plan. He turned a page toward Marcus. Meetings with a mentor, 2 nights of tutoring a week, a prep seminar this summer. We build ladders, not headlines. Marcus glanced at his mother. Her eyes were wet but steady. If you want this, she said, we'll make room for it. He nodded, something loosening in his chest he hadn't realized was clenched. I want it, Reed smiled, small, satisfied. Good, then we start with breakfast. Tomorrow, same diner. He rose, then paused. One more thing. The prices are too proud to say it, so I will. Your 1 plate fed more than 2 people. It reminded all of us who we are. At the door, Reed shook Shawna's hand like a contract and squeezed Marcus's shoulder like a promise. The hallway filled again with winter and possibility. When the latch clicked, silence sat down with them. Shawna exhaled a laugh that was almost a sob. Baby, she whispered, your father would have said this is what strength looks like. Marcus touched the envelope. It hummed like a new appliance. Outside, the morning widened. Breakfast with Elias comes with a story, one that explains why a millionaire cares this much, and what old debts have to do with a boy's single plate. School noticed before the bell did. Hallway noise bent around Marcus Hale like wind around a flag. Whispers, half smiles. A few palms slapped against his shoulder as if generosity were something you could pat. Someone muttered PR stunt near the lockers. Someone else said about time good things happen to good people. Marcus kept his eyes on the floor tiles that needed mopping and walked. In algebra, the teacher solved for X. Marcus solved for rent. He lined numbers up in the margins the way his dad had taught him. No slant, no shortcuts, decimal points like little anchors. The envelope in his backpack felt heavier than the textbook. He didn't open it. He didn't need to see the papers to believe them. He'd seen the look in Elias Reed's eyes when a man tells the truth and puts it in writing. Between classes, the guidance counselor called him in, gentle hands folded over a keyboard. I heard about the Reed scholars, she said. We'll shift your schedule so tutoring fits clean. Congratulations, Marcus. He nodded, grateful and slightly dizzy. It felt like stepping off a curb he hadn't seen. On the walk home, winter had a bite and a shine. He stopped outside the dark window of Hale Hardware and laid 2 fingers on the glass. Dad, he thought, I think the future just changed its address. That night, Shawna ironed her work polo flat as paper while Marcus read through the program packet at the table. Meetings, study hours, a summer seminar at the community college. They really want to build you a map, Shawna said. Dad used to say maps are just promises you keep with yourself, Marcus answered. He didn't know if his father had ever said that out loud or if Marcus had grown it from something simpler, leave no splinters for the next guy. But it fit. He slept deeper, the kind of sleep where the heater's clicks become rain. Morning, the diner smelled like coffee that meant it. Elias Reed was already in a booth, coat off, elbows on the formica as if money had to wait its turn like everyone else. He stood when Marcus and Shawna arrived. Before we talk tutoring and calendars, Elias said, I owe you a story. The owner refilled cups without asking. The griddle hissed in punctuation. Walter and Helen Price were not there. This talk was meant for 3. I wasn't always the man in a coat, Elias began, eyes on the steam rising from his mug. Years ago, I slept in my delivery truck twice a week and learned how to make instant noodles in a thermos. There were people who saw me and people who looked at me. The Prices? They saw. He traced a finger through a ring of coffee on the table and smiled at the memory as if it still warmed. Walter fronted me gas on a Friday when I couldn't make my route. Helen sent me home with half a pot of stew and pretended she'd made too much. They never asked for credit. They asked me to become someone who would use a chance. Marcus listened the way you listen to weather reports. The forecast mattered. Shawna's hands wrapped her mug. Her shoulders eased. Elias leaned back. So when they described a boy who gave his only plate without angles or audience, I paid attention. Your kindness unlocked their pride in a way my money couldn't. He paused, weighing his next words. And there's more, about your father and me. But that's for tomorrow at my office. I want to show you, not tell you. A small thrill moved behind Marcus's ribs, equal parts fear and curiosity. Okay, he said. Elias slid a simple planner across the table. For now, your quiet math. 2 nights a week with the tutor, Saturdays off for work or rest. We'll keep the load honest. The owner set down plates they hadn't ordered. Eggs, toast, fruit. On the house, he said, eyes kind but not pitying. Marcus hesitated, then ate. The food didn't taste like charity. It tasted like agreement. When they finished, Elias rose, leaving cash beneath the sugar jar. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., bring the envelope. Bring your questions. Outside, the morning was bright and sharp. Marcus tucked the planner into his jacket and walked with his mother to the bus stop. Somewhere between the click of the crosswalk and the sigh of the bus doors, he realized the town felt fractionally different, as if a door had opened and stayed that way. In Elias's office, a photograph on the wall will pull Marcus's past into his future and turn help into continuity. Elias's office sat above a warehouse where forklifts beeped like patient metronomes. Maps of routes lined one wall. A coffee machine hissed in the corner. It didn't feel like a throne room. It felt like work. Before we talk signatures, Elias said, hanging his coat, you should know why last night mattered to me. He poured 3 waters, not wine. When I was 24, I was broke, proud, and pretending not to be both. I hauled pallets for a shipping yard and slept in my truck twice a week. 2 people kept me fed and moving, Walter and Helen Price. Marcus sat straighter. Shawna folded her hands. Elias smiled toward a memory. Walter slipped gas money into my jacket and called it advance. Helen sent me home with stew inside a thermos and insisted she'd made too much. They never asked for payback. They asked me to keep going. He lifted a folder from his desk and tapped it gently. They won't ask for help now either. Pride's a good coat, but winter gets through. I've prepared a grant. Rent for a year, medical coverage, grocery credit. No speeches, no publicity. He looked at Marcus. I think they'll accept it if you're in the room. Why me? Marcus asked quietly. Because you gave them back their dignity in 5 seconds, Elias said. I've been trying for months. They drove to a modest apartment that wore its cleanliness like Sunday clothes. Helen opened the door before the knock finished. Walter rose from his chair, joints protesting, eyes bright. We brought a friend, Elias said, stepping aside so Marcus could enter first. The table held 2 teacups and a third set carefully for the idea of company. Marcus sat opposite, palms on the wood, meeting their gaze. I didn't give you charity, he said. I shared dinner. People helped my dad when times were bad. This is how we keep the circle true. Helen's hands fluttered once, then settled. Walter cleared his throat. Son, he said, voice sanded by work, we weren't raised to take. Then call it returning what you already gave, Marcus answered. Mr. Reed said you kept him moving. Let him keep you steady. Elias slid the folder across the table and waited without hurry. Helen read the first page aloud, the second in silence. Walter closed his eyes long enough to choose, then opened them again and nodded. They signed like people blessing a thing before using it. The air changed. Shoulders lowered. The room felt taller. Helen pressed Marcus's fingers between hers. Your father taught you right, she whispered. He did, Marcus said, and believed it more than ever. Back at the office, Elias guided them past dispatch boards and model trucks toward a small corridor. One last stop, he said. The hallway opened into a gallery of photographs. Early trucks, first crews, faces lit by the relief of work. Marcus paused in front of a black and white frame. A young laborer knelt to repair a splintered pallet, teaching another man how to brace the board. The student was clearly Elias, years leaner. The teacher's profile, steady, precise, stole Marcus's breath. Keep walking, Elias said softly. The next picture will explain why this isn't charity at all. Marcus stepped to the next frame. Color, not black and white this time. Sunlight striking a loading bay, dust like glitter in the air. 2 men looked straight at the camera, sleeves rolled, smiles quick and unposed. The younger was Elias, eyes bright with the relief of being taught. The older, steady shoulders, careful hands, a penciled name on his shirt pocket, Darrell Hale. Marcus's breath snagged. His father's face, familiar as a mirror and distant as a star, watched him from the wall. "My first week," Elias said, joining him. "Your dad took one look at the way I muscled everything and said, 'Strength isn't just lifting. It's leaving nothing sharp for the next guy.' He taught me to sand splinters off pallets, to chalk the route before the engine turned, to over-communicate when you're tired. He kept me from quitting by showing me how to work." Marcus's fingers hovered near the glass. "I didn't know you knew him." "I knew him like a man knows a handrail on a bad staircase," Elias said, smiling. "Didn't lean on it every second, but when I needed it, it held." Shawna pressed her palm to her mouth, and in the space between her fingers Marcus heard a small, aching laugh. "He used to come home smelling like sawdust and diesel," she said. "Said he liked the smell because it meant tomorrow could happen." Elias nodded toward the photo. "This is why your plate at the diner didn't read as charity to me. It read as continuity. Your father invested in me when no one else had a reason. You gave dignity to the prices when pride would have kept them hungry. My part is simple. Keep the circle unbroken, forward and back." They stood with the picture long enough for the past to redecorate the present. When they moved to Elias's office, the scholarship paperwork looked less like rescue and more like relay. Elias opened the folder. "I'll walk you through every page," he said. "No fine print. You'll have a student mentor and a financial counselor. 2 nights of tutoring a week, a summer bridge course, then our college pipeline. We expect work, not gratitude." Marcus met his gaze. "You'll get both, but I know which one matters." "Good," Elias said. "One more thing, responsibility. If we build ladders, you help hold them for the next kid." "I will," Marcus said, the promise fitting his voice like a jacket that would grow with him. Shawna signed first, hand steady. Marcus followed, careful with his name, each letter a rung. Elias countersigned and closed the folder with a satisfied tap. "Welcome to Reed Scholars." They didn't stage a photo. They shook hands like men who understood tools. Outside, the warehouse hum rolled on, forklifts beeping, doors rattling. Elias walked them to the stairs. "Tomorrow," he said, "we start turning your one plate into policy. The diner owner's willing. I've wanted something simple that keeps dignity centered." "What kind of policy?" Marcus asked. "A suspended plate board," Elias said. "Pay forward without performance. Quiet tickets for quiet need. Your idea, your rules." Marcus pictured the diner wall, a corkboard with little cards, no names unless offered, a system that asked no one to prove their hunger. It felt right. It felt like sanding a pallet so the next hand wouldn't bleed. As they stepped into winter light, Marcus glanced back once more at his father's photo. The grin in the frame met the grin on his face and made a bridge between them. "Dad," he whispered, hardly aware he'd said it aloud. "I'll keep the splinters off. The board goes up, the town reacts, some cheer, some sneer, and Marcus learns that turning kindness into policy is its own kind of work." The corkboard went up at dawn. 2 screws into the diner's paneled wall beside the pie list. Suspended plates was hand-lettered on a card by the owner, not a printer. Black marker, steady lines. Under it, neat tickets waited. 1 hot meal. No questions. A coffee ring ghosted the corner like a blessing. Marcus Hale pinned the first 2 cards himself, bought with the stipend's small surplus. "House rules," he told the staff huddle. "Anyone can add a plate. Anyone can use one. No names unless offered. No stories demanded." The owner nodded. "Receipts for donors. Dignity for eaters." By 7, regulars filtered in, reading the board as if it were weather. A mail carrier slid a 20 under the sugar jar. "Make that 4. The teen busser smiled like he'd invented kindness. 2 high schoolers snickered, charity board, then ordered fries anyway. At 8, Helen and Walter Price arrived, coats buttoned, cheeks bright. They didn't take a ticket. They bought one, Helen's handwriting looping carefully. "For the next pair of hands," she said, tapping the cork. The first taker came just before 9, a roofer with knuckles like gravel studying the menu too long. The owner nodded at the board. The roofer shook his head. Marcus caught his eye, lifted a card, and tucked it face down beside a coffee. "Already covered," he said, voice ordinary. The man exhaled like a tire losing fear. Not everyone applauded. A man at the counter muttered about handouts. Another said programs make people soft. The cook flipped a pancake too hard and called it an accident. Marcus didn't argue. He had learned debate burns calories hope needs. He wiped a table, pinned another card, and kept the line moving. By noon, the board breathed. Tickets added, tickets gone, a rhythm you could feel from the register. Elias Reed came through the side door, coat open, cheeks flushed with warehouse wind. He read the rules card, smiled, and paid for 5 plates with the discreet efficiency of a man buying bolts. "Looks right," he said. "Looks quiet." Life shifted around the edges. Shawna dropped one of her night shifts and started an evening class Reed's Fund covered. Intro to Medical Billing textbook crisp in her backpack. She slept deeper the first night than she had in months. Marcus built his week on the tutor's calendar. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4, an hour each, then algebra homework done before dinner. The first stumble came small. He nodded off over a chapter, woke at midnight annoyed with himself and wanted to sprint. Instead, he brewed tea, set a timer, and finished the assignment clean. "Keep the map," he heard Elias say. "Strength isn't speed. It's rhythm." Saturday. Marcus worked the board in the morning rush, learning the choreography of giving without making theater. A glance, a nod, a card, a pot of coffee refilled before pride could harden. A grandmother pressed a wrinkled dollar into his palm. For whoever's next. He taped the bill to the frame like a flag. As the bell over the door chimed on another plate claimed, Marcus felt the town tilt, just a degree, toward enough. Attention fades. Work remains. Can Marcus keep the map, school, stipend, board, steady when the applause gets quiet and the grind gets loud? Applause faded. The board stayed. So did homework. Marcus Hale learned that keeping a good thing was quieter than getting it. Tuesdays and Thursdays he hit tutoring at 4, diner by 6, bed by 10. The suspended plates corkboard breathed behind him. Cards added, cards claimed, like a steady lung he didn't have to watch to trust. School tested the rhythm. Algebra stacked proofs like scaffolding. English wanted drafts and redrafts. One afternoon he bombed a quiz he'd crammed for. The old panic rose. Run faster, do more, sleep less, but he heard Elias Reed's voice from the diner booth. Strength isn't speed, it's rhythm. Marcus met the tutor early, walked back through the mistakes, and saw where his pencil outran his thinking. He didn't chase the grade. He fixed the method. Small wins began to stitch. A clean proof, a paragraph his teacher called precise, a night he finished before the heater's second click. He started leaving 1 extra suspended plate every Friday from his stipend, a private promise to the kid he used to be. At home, Shawna came back from her evening class smelling like paper and fresh decisions. "Medical billing's a language," she said, laughing softly. "I can learn languages." She slept heavy and woke smiling. Their apartment felt an inch bigger. Not everyone cheered. The sneers at school turned to shrugs, then silence, the way attention does when stories stop being shiny. Marcus noticed the space where praise had been and kept moving. He taped his planner above the desk, penciled in tests, circled rest, drew a box around call grandma because love is also a deadline. On a wet Wednesday, Helen and Walter Price came in for soup, refused a ticket, and paid for 2. Walter tapped the board's frame. "You kept the splinters off," he said, pride tucked under his cap. Marcus swallowed that warmth and turned it into motion. Refill, bus, wipe, pin. Reed dropped by without fanfare, coat damp from warehouse weather. He stood beside Marcus at the board and watched a roofer claim a card without lowering his chin. "Character," Reed said quietly, "is what stays when the applause leaves." Marcus nodded. "The map helps." "Keep it," Reed said. "And tomorrow, signing day. Kitchen table. We'll read every clause out loud. No fog, no rush." That night, Marcus set out 2 pens and a coaster for the envelope. He tidied the table the way his father had tidied workbenches, wiping until the wood remembered it was useful. He laid the planner beside the mugs, ran a finger down the coming week, and felt the shape of a life that had learned to hold. Before bed, he walked past Hale Hardware, touched the cold glass and said, "Almost there. Dad." The envelope lay on the polished wood like a new tool waiting for hands that knew how to use it. Marcus Hale lined up 2 pens, set out mugs, and smoothed the planner's spine. When the knock came, it sounded like a promise kept. Elias Reed stepped in with winter on his coat and a laptop under his arm. He didn't rush. He greeted Shawna, took the chair that let everyone see the screen, and opened the file. "No fog," he said. Line by line, they read the Reed Scholars Agreement aloud. Tutoring schedule, summer bridge, book stipend, living support paid to Shawna, reporting dates, a clause on academic honesty, a clause on mental health check-ins, a number to call at 2 a.m. when life gets loud. For each page, Elias paused. "Questions?" Marcus had them. "If I fall behind? We adjust the plan, not your worth. If mom's hours change? Support flexes. You don't choose between school and rent. If I want to mentor later? You're first in line. Ladders are for holding." Shawna asked about taxes. Elias answered without blinking. She asked about what happens if the company changes hands. "The fund is firewalled," he said. "Promises survive paperwork." They initialed slowly. No performative smiles. Just careful ink. When the last page slid across, Marcus signed his name like he'd learned to build it. Letter by letter, straight and true. Elias countersigned and closed the laptop with a soft click that sounded like a door opening. "Welcome," he said simply. They didn't pose for photos. They drank tea. Shawna exhaled in a way that seemed to lift the ceiling. Elias stood, shook hands like people who fix things, and left the house warmer than he found it. Outside, dusk made the street lamps honest. Marcus walked to Hale Hardware and pressed 2 fingers to the glass. The store reflected his jacket, the planner under his arm, the boy who had traded a plate for a promise and found the promise traded back 100-fold. He cut through town to the diner. The suspended plates board breathed. Cards added, cards gone. He pinned 2 fresh tickets from his stipend and wiped a coffee ring off the frame, sanding splinters the way his father taught. "So the next hand doesn't bleed." "Keeping it steady?" the owner asked. "Keeping it steady," Marcus said. He headed home with the map in his pocket and tomorrow already penciled, the heater's clicks waiting, the table ready for work. Hunger passes. Love, and the systems we build to carry it, stays. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes small choices can change whole towns. Comment, "Keep the map," and I'll send you a free suspended plate starter kit, printable board cards, plus simple policy template to use in your community.